You're praying for the fire of a rocket launch, but you're living like a paper airplane. You're waiting for a wind to carry you, but you've forgotten that momentum is a prerequisite for lift. On this episode, we're diving into the 63-day stabilization period and why the do work phase is a high-pressure test of your internal systems. I'm Jesse Wood, and this is why Dominion starts with do. If you're hungry to walk in your God-given purpose, but the process feels slower or more hidden than you expected, you're not alone. This is the Jesse Wood Show, where we give voice to the real process behind God-designed purpose. I created this space for faith-driven builders like you to help you recognize the importance of the season that God has you in and what He's doing in you during it, because what He builds in you matters just as much as what He builds through you. I'm Jesse Wood. Welcome to the podcast, and let's build together. On the show, I've been going through the builder blueprint that's found in my book, The Purpose-Driven Business Builder Blueprint. And on this episode, we're talking about the D, which is do work. But I'd like to actually really say that Dominion starts with do, which is actually kind of pretty clever. But this is why movement really is the engine of clarity, because we're praying and we're asking God to do stuff, to get us into our purpose, right? But God can't steer a parked car. So if you want direction, you do have to give God some momentum to work with. The problem here, though, for a lot of people, a lot of builders, is analysis paralysis. Most people are trying to wait for 100% clarity, knowing exactly what to do, how to do it, before they take just a 10% step. They want the entire map before they start the engine. They want to understand all of it, make sure they're the professional at every element, and they have all the confidence before they get going. But in the kingdom, clarity isn't found in the planning. It's found in the process, because you don't get water to part while just standing on the bank. Instead, you get it to part actually when your feet hit the river. And it's one of my favorite moments in the Israelites' journey of, obviously they had seen the Red Sea part, leaving Egypt and getting into the wilderness. So that was massive. That looked like Moses holding a staff. And I often envision it as he holds that thing up, and it just looks crazy. It looks like nothing's happening until the wind starts to pick up. Some things start to happen. And so there's moments as God's building you and growing you, and you're working in your trust with Him and in all of that. There'll be moments in your world where what God is asking you to do looks like just holding the position that you're in. So when I'm talking about doing, I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to be just a ton of activity. It's what God is asking you to do. It's doing what He's telling you to do, whether it looks like a bunch of activity or you're just standing here looking crazy holding a staff and everybody else around you is freaking out and crying and thinking it's all going to go terrible and telling you, shouldn't you be doing something else? Shouldn't we? Maybe there's another direction. This is wild. Like, this is impossible. And you're just standing there. So, and I had a moment like that in my journey too, before I got to the spot where what God was asking me to do actually looked like activity. And it turned into a lot of activity. But in the first doing, it was just working for Him, which was being with Him, being in His presence. When the Israelites got through the promised land, or got to the Jordan River for the promised land, though, what's interesting is I believe that at that season that they were in, the river was high. So if ever it was going to be challenging to get across that river, this was as challenging as it gets. And the Lord's instruction to them literally was to go put your feet in the river. And they did. And then all of a sudden the river stops, backs up, and creates a way for them to go forward. And then they're in the promised land. When I started building my financial firm, I wasn't looking for something to do. I wasn't looking for a business opportunity. I had actually been pretty set now. I went from working so hard in corporate America, chasing the American dream, trying to go make things happen, got frustrated by it. I was in a season of becoming aware and unplugging, identity first. And God was doing all this work in me that I had gotten so accustomed to it, and I really liked it. I loved spending time with him. I liked resting. All my friends were running around and punching clocks and trying to make things happen and hustle and grind and all that stuff. And I was really enjoying just spending time with the Lord. But I knew at some point there was going to be something that he would bring for me to do activity wise. I just didn't know when or what, but through a supernatural sign, I'm now having a conversation with someone telling me about this business opportunity and mentorship offered to go build next to them. And because it was such a supernatural sign, it was like a burning bush right in front of me. I knew this was God saying, all right, now it's time to go do work. Now it's time to start walking into dominion. And a part of that is in our financial firm, they have academies that run every single quarter. And they take you from brand new, you know nothing, all the way to knowing how to help high net worth individuals, more complicated tax strategies, all that kinds of extra stuff. Basically, everything you need to know to get all the way to being a broker owner yourself. And then they have semi-annual academies to then help you as a broker owner continue to grow, continue to be a good mentor, expand your business, all of that stuff. And so I started in these academies, and they're challenging. Sure, a lot of people start and they don't finish. Then there's also competitions in there where, there's rankings in the class. And I got in there and I felt God saying, hey, you need to make sure you don't leave any potential on the table. I want you to be obedient to me. I'm putting this work in front of you. This is what I'm calling you to do. Are you going to take it seriously? And can you really push yourself? And so my activity skyrocketed. And if you just looked at me from the outside looking in, you'd probably look like I'm grinding and hustling. But for me, it was a much bigger picture and a much bigger perspective. I wasn't trying to just do okay in academy and have people think that I was doing all right. I'm feeling this connection with God. He's saying, you prayed and asked me to walk you into your purpose. That's what you prayed. You asked me for. And this is the path. And you get to decide how quickly we make progress from here. It comes down to how quickly you trust me, how seriously you take this, how coachable you are, and how quickly you implement what you're being taught. So I was like, well, I'm not playing games. We wasted enough time in life. At this point, I'm 37 years old. And I'm like, okay, God, challenge accepted. I had good mentorship, dove into the academies. And 3 months later, I was fully certified to not just help clients on my own, but to also start mentoring other agents. And I finished first in that academy. But for me, when God provided that door, the business opportunity and the subsequent academies, I decided that what is optional, the academies are optional. You don't even have to go into them. For me, it was mandatory. Not only was it mandatory, but performing at the highest level that I could was mandatory. And then going to the retreats after each one, and going to our big kickoff event, going to our summer nationwide event, it wasn't optional. For me, it was mandatory because I'm working for the king, not a paycheck. And so one of the biggest things that you have to have, most important things you have to have going into a do work season, is the larger perspective of this is about your purpose, which is about kingdom impact, kingdom building. And it's way bigger than you just looking like an entrepreneur or business owner in a way that nobody's going to say, you're not doing enough. Be honest with yourself. When you're leaving potential on the table. When you could be taking it more seriously, going harder. And I don't mean just work all day, all night, and don't give yourself a break. I'm talking about the quality and intention at which you attack things. be balanced. But sometimes God will call you into a season where it looks like nonstop. And I was in a season like that for a little over a year, but I broke some records, made some good money, had some really cool things happen. But I was doing it as unto the Lord and for the King. And I was excited that I was on making progress towards my purpose. And I didn't want to stretch that thing out any longer than I have to. But I want to talk to you about the 3 pillars of dominion movement. And pillar 1 is the Joshua mandate. This is movement before walls. And if you're familiar with the story in Scripture, in Joshua 1:9, the Lord himself is talking to Joshua, and he says, "Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Now, Joshua is a warrior, a fighter. He's going into the promised land, and God is using him to conquer that land for his children. God made the promise that, hey, I'm going to bring you into a land that's your own, flowing with milk and honey. But it didn't mean that Joshua didn't have to fight for it. God says, I'm going to give it to you, but you have work to do inside of that thing. So, and in the Lord and Joshua's powwow, God's saying, hey, no matter what it looks like, be strong and be courageous. He actually says this 3 times to Joshua, and he's saying, I'm with you. God being with you right now is what's going to guarantee that you're going to get into your purpose. He's encouraging you right now, be strong and courageous. This could get crazy. And there was a certain battle, the Battle of Jericho. There's a city, big walls. God's like, we're going to conquer Jericho. And God's big action plan for it was to tell Joshua and his people to march around the city walls for 7 days or 7 times, and then shout. And they had trumpets. It was like, imagine just worship and this massive sound wave going out. So they do that. Joshua follows God's instructions. Nothing about that actually seems that you're going to win a battle and conquer some fortified city, first of all. So sometimes God's instruction to you might not make sense. And this is why you can't try to make it make sense and have all the clarity and go, oh, I see all that. You're just like, God, what are we doing? And then your job is just to go be obedient. So sometimes it doesn't look right on a business plan, but God's saying this is what we do, and that's okay. You just got to trust the relationship and be obedient and listen to him. So Joshua does that. The walls come tumbling down, and some people believe that the walls fell in a way that provided ramps to help Joshua and those warriors get into the city even easier. So God's going to bring a supernatural element to you walking into your purpose and conquering things. And that's also what started to happen to me. My subsequent academies that I went into, I ended up placing first. I'm the only person in our agency to finish first in all 4 of the academies that we have leading up to being a senior broker owner. But I'm putting in work. I'm being coachable. I'm putting in consistent activity. I'm doing the things they're telling me to do. And then God starts adding his supernatural element. And that's pillar 2, which is the 100-day threshold. And actually inside of that is the 63-day science.
Vision isn't permission to rush. It's an invitation to trust. Like Abraham, sometimes you're called to move without seeing the full destination. Everyone wants to build what they feel called to build. But calling often comes before visibility, like David in the field. When God gives you a vision, it's not so you can force it to happen. Like Joseph, there are seasons where the dream is clear, but the path is quiet. Before God builds something with you, he builds you, the builder. Like Moses in formation, and Nehemiah laying foundations that last. The Purpose-Driven Business Builder's Blueprint was created to help you recognize your season and build it right. Learn more at purposedrivenbuilder.com.
The 100-day threshold is this idea, it's commonly coached, that after 100 days, you start seeing a stabilization. Anything that you do, you go hard at it. After 100 days, you start seeing this stabilization. Well, when you're doing things with the Lord, I actually believe there is a supernatural stabilization. In my book, I talk about this. There's a doctor, Dr. Caroline Leaf. She says that it takes 63 days to stabilize a new neural pathway. So you just got to know that the first 63 days are literally about rewiring your brain to see yourself as a builder, to get all the fear out and start getting in the right direction, start feeling confident. So that analysis paralysis, if you just keep moving, you don't understand it, you're going to stay scared. Be scared, just don't stop. Just keep moving. Trust the process, trust the system. Eventually, that paralysis desire is going to leave and it's going to start making sense. You're going to start getting it. And it starts to get fun. But the battle in the mind is the first battle we got to win. So 63 days into that, the next 37 days is about reaching that day 100. And when I went through my first 30 days, and then by day 100, I'm at my first event. There was a graduation for that academy. I'm receiving this sword that's on my wall here, if you're watching this on video. And it was mind-blowing. I also had a chance to speak to the class, and I've been a preacher and a speaker pretty much my whole life, and that's when something else clicked. God's like, you see, when you win and you perform well, not only do you get credibility with people and your classmates, but you get to give them the gospel. You get to talk about us and how we do this and start spreading the mission and the message of kingdom building. And so that was a big click. I'm like, all right, God, I get it, why we're here. It's way bigger than just building a business and helping clients. It's God literally is not adding his supernatural element, but that meant I had to need to keep putting in the work, doing my part. But when God adds the supernatural, that next 3 months, I'm in my second academy. I came home from that event. I got reached out to by several people. One of those people ended up being a high net worth client. I ended up getting my first 5-figure payday, made 5 figures in one day. And I'm only about 5 months into business building. And I ended up, a month after that, I ended up hitting the level of associate broker because of my performance and my numbers and the amount of people I had on my team. It's an agency model. So now I qualify as an associate broker. And then a year after that, I ended up becoming a broker owner myself. But God starts adding the supernatural to it. I won that next academy. First person to go back to back like that. I'm like, man, this is really getting crazy. And people are asking, how are you doing this? Well, not only am I working hard, I also have the Lord doing this because he says, hey, go take dominion. I was finally becoming a stable vessel that could carry the weight of what God was trying to build on top of me. The thing you have to remember is your first 90 days really going after something, or maybe start today, maybe been doing something for a while, but start today getting serious. And think about the next 90 days really being about your formation, and that 100th day, seeing how God starts to bring this in, how he starts bringing the supernatural and favor. I didn't just get lucky and make a 5-figure payday. It happened because my mind was finally stable enough to steward God's favor. And the third pillar is we've already kind of talked about this, but the as unto the Lord standard, which is stewardship, being a good steward. When you do the work that others maybe are too proud to do or too scared to do, you develop capacity that others are going to be too weak to carry. And Colossians 3:23 is the verse I've been hitting at, but it says, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord. And when you're working for God, excellence is the only option. There's no option to I like to joke all the time, hey, whatever you do, just don't suck. Because we all have this internal truth teller, and we have the Holy Spirit with us that's going to be like, hey bro, hey girl, like, what are we doing? You know we're slacking, you know we're being lazy. You're not out here competing against other people. You're competing against the potential that God put in you. and the ability and the opportunity to turn that potential into actual manifested purpose. And you're competing truly against time, because nobody knows the day or the hour. You have no idea how many breaths you have in your body. How far are you going to get into your purpose? I want you to take one step today. I want you to take a moment and identify one task that you've seen as optional. It's an optional thing. Maybe it's an optional class or course or event or trip or whatever it might be for you in your industry. Something that's optional, but you've been ignoring it. Maybe the extra phone calls, the standards of the SOPs, standard operating procedures of what you should be doing that you think are extra, and you're just doing the bare minimum to get by. You're not. The goal is not to see how little you can do and get away with, is to take your purpose seriously and show God, hey, you can trust me. And I'm going to maximize this thing, and I'm going to stop wasting time with it. And when walking into your purpose is not optional to you, then these optional things become mandatory. So if you've got a mandatory list, all the things that are mandatory you got to do, and then your optional list, I want you to at least find one thing. Ask Holy Spirit, point it out to you. What's that one thing I wasn't planning on doing? I wasn't going to go. I wasn't going to make that call. I wasn't going to connect with that person. I'll be fine without it. And God's going to say, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Then I'm going to trust you more, and more things are going to go. You never know how this is going to go. Last year, I got home from that first event, and one of our real estate partners is a broker owner. He's a leader, speaker, mentor, coach. He's an author as well. He invited us to go to an event of his, and that invitation looked like paying money to be a vendor. But he said, hey, I want you to bring a table and a sign and connect with people, market what you do with your services. But I'm also going to give you a small speaking spot. I was like, okay, wow, that's really cool. So we made that investment. We went there, completely optional. But I felt God saying, let's do it. Davian and I were still kind of new, figuring things out, building this financial brokerage. And the money that it took to invest, it wasn't a little, but it wasn't a lot either. So we decided to go for it, got that speaking spot, and brought what I bring, business and kingdom building, and my belief and my relationship with God. And it was just a business conference. But putting those two together, I got the attention of a publisher that was there. It was his publisher, God-ordained moment, a book that I was prophesied to write 7.5 years before. All of a sudden, God says, now it's time to write that book. Wouldn't have happened if I considered that event was optional. Wouldn't have happened. Now I've got the book, and now we have this podcast. Now we're on the Good View Network. God's supernatural coming into this thing. Additionally, I just got asked to speak at the event next year. And instead of having an 8-minute random slot in there, I'm actually going to have a 45-minute spot, and I'll be sharing the stage with the person that I quoted in the first chapter of my book. I'm not going to tell you because you got to read the book to find out, but I can't even believe it. My mind is blown. I get to share a stage with somebody I look up to that I quoted in the book, and I'm going to get to meet this person, talk to them, and that's a year from now. Who even knows what God's going to do between now and then? But I'm doing my part. God's adding the supernatural part on it, but I had to take optional things and go, God, what are we really doing to get into my purpose, and move them into the mandatory spot? Because your confidence in what you do and who you are and God building your business, or your ministry, confidence is built. It's not given. You don't just get confident and then go do the work. You do the work, and the confidence finds you in the middle of it. As God brings stuff, you're like, man, I was doubting yesterday, but it's so obvious I'm right where I'm supposed to be when, and God's right here in the middle of it doing crazy things. He's parting seas, lighting bushes on fire, raining manna from heaven, bringing amazing blessings and relationship. And I want to remind you of Matthew 6:33, that when you seek first the kingdom of God and right standing with him, all these things will be added. So you got to get right with God today. God, what do I need to be doing between me and you for my business, for walking into my purpose, inside of my ministry, having that client that paid me 5 figures in a day? God brought that. He did that. I'm just trying to make money doing volume based on the averages I make on clients. And then boom, that was killer. It launched me into further promotions and progress in my business faster than I could even see coming. But if you need some more clarity on the season that you're in, go to my website, thepurposedrivenbuilder.com. There's a 60-second builder inspection quiz. You can also go directly to it at builderquiz.com. Stop waiting for the water to stir. Stop waiting for things to part. Just step in. Your 5-figure payday, God's supernatural adding to your natural, is on the other side of you taking action. Dominion starts with do. Take the inspection quiz at builderquiz.com. You've been listening to Jesse Wood, tuning into the Jesse Wood Show. Let's build together.